stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. My name's Dave Hunter. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. We're going to begin by sending some good thoughts and prayers, mojo, whatever we got, to Gulf Dogs, a friend of the show, good man, patriot, who shares a lot of information on the Twitter, and hoping that he gets out of the hospital soon and back to normal. He's checked into the hospital today, so we're hoping for good things for Gulf Dogs. And I want to thank Patricia for USA on the Twitter for probably the kindest compliment that I've received to date for the show. Anytime someone offers to give you a further platform for what you say, it's a great compliment indeed. And I thank Patricia very much. Now let's begin the show. As we all know, people, when it comes to practicalities, size matters. All right? And I'm going to demonstrate that a bit today, starting with a story from the Reuters photographer's blog. This is titled Section 60, Stripped of Mementos, and it's by Kevin Lamarque. That's spelled Lamarque, and it was done on October the 8th. Arlington, Virginia. In March of 2013, I walked through the Arlington National Cemetery's Section 60, the burial site for soldiers from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Unlike most of the nearly 400,000 orderly and somber graves over Arlington's 612 acres, the newer graves in Section 60 carried fresh reminders of lives cut too short and of too many loved ones left behind bearing unspeakable sorrow. There were immensely sad graveside moments of girlfriends, wives, children, mothers, and fathers sitting, kneeling, laying beside a grave, often touching, holding, or kissing the headstone of their fallen loved one. These loved ones would often leave behind mementos of all kinds, a way to keep their connection to those who departed too soon. At that time, I documented many of these graveside mementos in a photo essay for Reuters. Some of the images brought tears to my eyes. I'll just stop to say that for a professional photographer to say this is quite a statement in and of itself, especially if they do news, because they're hardened to what goes on in the world. So when something strikes them to the point of tears, it does indeed have a kind of pathos and can reach. Back to the story. Recently, it was brought to my attention that Arlington National Cemetery was enforcing a policy that forbids the placing of these graveside mementos. In short time, these headstones have been stripped of these expressions of love and loss. Some are saved by the cemetery, some discarded. I took a walk through Section 60 this week to witness the changes, and I was saddened to see these elements of humanity swept away. Section 60 suddenly looks like every other section of the cemetery, save for the freshness of the graves. Evidence of open wounds, healing, and reflection are no more. There has been backlash from families, and it appears that Arlington National Cemetery will, at least for now, adhere to their policy in an effort to maintain the dignity of the hallowed ground. Now, this story includes some very heart-touching photographs of some of the graves at Arlington in Section 60, and as with all articles that I use, I'm going to post this up at UBG Contact around the time of the release of the show. UBG Contact is also where people may contact me via Twitter. Size matters in this case because it's an indication of a government which has gotten too big. It's gotten too big to remember that families must be allowed a time of grief. Arlington is a point of honor for some of our fallen, and there should be dignity there. But only a government that has grown to too large a size could think that it is appropriate to not allow expressions of immediate grief at these grave sites and to even discard some of them. This shows a lack of respect for the individual that an oversized government results in. Now let me turn to another example of how size matters. And the person I'm going to read about is also my awesome American for this show. Now this was brought to my attention by Leopard Woman. It's from the WashingtonPost.com local section. This is by Michael E. Ruan, and it was published on October the 9th. Headline, Citizen Lawnmower at Lincoln Memorial, shut down or not, areas shouldn't be neglected. Chris Cox says he brought the leaf blower at Home Depot for $200. He got the used lawnmower at a thrift store for $100. The heavy metal hand cart with the squeaky wheels is his. Cox, 45, a chainsaw sculptor from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, grabbed the attention of shutdown-weary Washington on Wednesday when he showed up with all his gear and was reportedly spotted mowing the lawn at the Lincoln Memorial. He said the police chased him away, but it was too late. He said he had already been tidying up around the memorial and the reflecting pool for the past few days because nobody else is. He drew rapid media attention, social and conventional, as well as a crowd of amused foreign tourists as he stood on the plaza of the memorial Wednesday afternoon and declared his purpose. I figured out that I could play a valuable role as a janitor, if you will, he said. So I started cleaning up the overflowing trash cans. I brought a blower, and I've been blowing all the trails, and today I cut the grass out here. I didn't find it a nuisance to be here, he said as he stood in a red T-shirt and jeans, holding a bright blue South Carolina state flag. I found it my duty to be here. He said he does not have a political position on the shutdown. I'm not here to point fingers, he said. I only want to inspire people to come out and make a difference. The building behind me serves as a moral compass, not only for our country, but for the world. And over my dead body, are we going to find trash pouring out of these trash cans, he said. At the end of the day, we are the stewards of these buildings that are memorials. I want to encourage my friends and fellow Americans to go to their parks and show up with a trash bag and a rake, he said. Show up with a good attitude and firm handshake for the U.S. Park Service. Cox, who said he was in town in a holding pattern and for an art show, said he also used his chainsaw to cut up a huge tree branch that had fallen across one of the reflecting pool walkways. He said he moved it out of the way. He said he mowed the lawn of the memorial for quite a while before he was stopped. I'm not going to apologize for it, he said. The U.S. Park Police could not be reached for comment. A National Park Service spokesman, ironically named Mike Litterist, said he had heard about the lawn mowing but was unaware of Cox's other work. Now this is one story, I've got two of them, actually, that I'm going to post about Mr. Cox to UBG Contact on the Twitter. In the second story, Cox talks about how a park policeman actually came up to him and told him to stop, and said that maybe pictures of grass growing up around these memorials and accumulating trash might end the shutdown. So the park police definitely have, or at least their leaders, definitely have a dog in the race here. They want to see these memorials looking junky and trashy, and they want this to be recorded by social media and used by the leftist media in the United States in order to pressure people to accede to President Obama's demands. But one man stood up against that and said no. And others have joined him. And again, this is where size matters. You have a government that has grown so big that it callously ignores the heartfelt grief of those who have lost loved ones fighting our wars. And yet you have single people like Mr. Cox who see their duty and do it, not carrying a gun, not so much as raising a fist to another individual, but peacefully acting as true stewards of the United States of America. That's why Mr. Cox is my awesome American for this show. And that's why size matters. All right, that's about it for this particular show. And people can get hold of me at UBG Contact on the Twitter. And I'm going to be adding a new feature. I am going to add a way for people to get just the MP3 files of my show from Dropbox. Now, what will happen with that is people who I normally mail and tell about the show will get a link in the mail, and I will publish a link to the MP3 of the show on the Twitter. I will also keep the YouTube account, keep that going up to YouTube because people are used to the YouTube. And this gives a second source for the program that people can access when they want. And that's been one of the things about the program that I think folks have found the most helpful. This marks the 6-month anniversary of this show. And quite honestly, when I began it, I didn't even know if the thing would last 6 weeks. But I have since then gotten some really great listeners, people who have shown some loyalty to the program. And there are still things to say after 6 weeks and even after 6 months. I just want to extend my thanks to everyone who has chosen to spend time listening to this and tell you that I'll keep doing the best I can to be honest, upfront, and to try and not chew your ear off with things you've already heard. And with that, I want to wish you all a great week, a great weekend. Thank you, and may your God go with you. Bye-bye.